Hi, I'm Teresa Tomeo, Catholic author, speaker, and host of the daily EWTN Catholic radio program, The Catholic Connection. And welcome to 10 Minutes with Teresa Tomeo, or as I like to call it, 10 Minutes with T. That would be me. This is where we take a brief look at timely issues that affect our Catholic faith and our world. And today we're going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is discerning messages from the media. I'm very involved in media awareness and activism as a Catholic author and a speaker, and a woman who spent 20 years of my life as an anchorwoman and a reporter in the secular news media. So now I know all about those messages and how they're targeted to certain groups of people. But the good news is the Catholic Church doesn't say throw out the baby with the bathwater. The Catholic Church says the media can be used for great good. And not just Catholic media or Protestant media, such as, Christian radio or Catholic television, but all media, and that we can learn something from these outlets in the culture. But how do we discern those messages? And that's what we're going to be looking at today. And to talk about that is someone who's very familiar with this topic, and she's a friend of mine and a guest on my radio program and a fellow Catholic author. And her name is Katrina Zano, and her title right now for the Diocese of Phoenix is a pretty important one and pretty darn impressive, I might say. She's a coordinator for the John Paul II Resource Center for the Theology of the Body and Culture for the Diocese of Phoenix. Katrina, good to see you again.
Thank you, Teresa.
And talk about discerning the messages in the media. Let's look at something that's been very popular recently, the book Eat, Pray, Love, which has been now turned into a movie. You had the chance to watch the movie. I saw it on the plane going over to Italy a few months ago, and I thought, this was a really big waste of my time for 2 hours, even though I was stuck on a plane, for 8 hours overseas. I did not think it was very good, and I did not think there were many messages. But the book has some messages for us that we can glean if we look at everything through the lenses of Scripture and the teachings of the Catholic Church. You feel very strongly about this particular book.
I do, actually, because first of all, she's a fabulous writer. So as a writer, I appreciate how well written it is. But the other thing about it is that even though it's not a Christian book, it's not a Catholic book, she deals with what we could call the universal issues or the universal questions of life. And really the fundamental question of life is, who am I? What's
what
my
am
purpose?
I here for?
Exactly.
What's my purpose?
Why am I here on this earth? And that's what this book is about. And unfortunately, the movie didn't really capture what I would call the internal dialogue that she so well captures in the book, of the way she describes her angst as a woman. She finds herself 30-something, she's married, and she really doesn't want to have children, and she really doesn't like the path that's set out before her, the expectation of being a wife and a mother, when she really doesn't want that. She really wants to travel, she wants to experience, and so, so she makes the decision to leave her marriage in order to go find herself. Now, right there for many of us...
Red flags,
exactly.
Warning signs, hello.
Exactly, because, just because we're struggling with who am I, with, what my purpose is, doesn't mean we leave the commitments that we're in, especially if they're vowed commitments. Right. We need to take those very seriously and try to work within that context. But for her, because she's not working from that frame of reference, then she chooses to end her marriage, to be divorced, and go off for a year to really seek and to find herself in Italy and in India and in Bali. And to me, it was a fascinating journey of a woman's search for identity. And what I loved about it is I could see dimensions of theology of the body.
Well, the sacramental, and we were talking about this, it's very important, and you've been to Italy, and I am of Italian-American heritage, and I love visiting Italy. I've been there a number of times, just got back, as I mentioned, not too long ago, and it really is an experience, and it's very much theology of the body, because as Catholics we embrace who we are, not just spiritually but physically, because we're made in His image and likeness, male and female, and of course because of the incarnation. Jesus was fully God and fully man. But when you're in Italy, it is a very physical as well as spiritual experience. So I love that aspect of it, but I didn't find that expressed in the film. The sacramentals, it was just more like she was just eating a lot of gelato and pasta.
Right, exactly. That was really disappointing, because it comes through very strongly, at least for me, in the book, the fact that what happened is she recovered her senses. Our senses are meant to be gateways to encounter God.
Right.
We don't lock ourselves in a closet, and that's where we encounter God. I mean, maybe some people prefer to pray in a closet.
Catherine of Siena tried that for a few years, then he said, no, you're going outside. Yeah.
There we go. And so for her, because of her life, because of the depression she was experiencing, because of the internal angst, she really had lost touch between the senses and creation. Creation is meant to display the glory of God. So even a really good cup of gelato, in a way,
it's very Eucharistic, actually. I mean, you come together to break bread. I mean, that whole idea. But that wasn't expressed in the film. I haven't read the book, but I was so disappointed in the film, having spoken to you and other people who read the book in the journey. So it's important to pick out these things, but to do that through the lenses of Scripture and the teachings of the church. How do we do that? How do we understand what the church teaches us? How do we look out there at the world and see these things? You mentioned the sacramentals. You mentioned the universal truths. It's interesting because everything, we have to remember, everything goes back to God. God created us. He created the universe. So whether someone is seeking this through Buddhism or in Bali, what they're seeking is, as you said in the very beginning, this natural relationship with our Creator.
They are. Really what they're seeking is an experience of transcendence.
Right.
And sometimes that gets layered over. So for instance, her time in India, that's exactly okay. So she had her senses reawakened and kind of re-encountered the world in a sacramental way, but now she needed to go interior. Because it's not enough just to live through our senses. We need to live, obviously, in our relationship with God. And so, that's very key, to be able to be very anchored in our relationship with Christ and be able to see the world as God sees it. And so people are seeking this connection with transcendence. Where I saw it was I hiked what's called the Camino de Santiago de Compostela in Spain.
In Spain.
And it's, for many people, it's a 4-week pilgrimage walking. And almost every person I met was not Catholic, and many of them were not even Christian, but they were seeking this connection with the transcendence. And isn't that what we see in a lot of these movies?
Yes, yes.
And the way most often that gets resolved or solved is by seeking it through a love affair outside of the context of marriage. Because what people are seeking is connection. They're seeking, in a way, a mystical experience. And if you're seeking that outside the context of God, then really the commonplace or only place people know how to seek that is through a sexual encounter.
Right.
And so that's what we see in many. So I think sometimes if we can take a step back and say, what is it that they're really seeking? Now, I personally would not rather expose myself to movies that have that sexual content. It's not worth it for me. I can find that lesson somewhere else. But I think it's important to realize that this is why it keeps showing up over and over again, not only just in movies, but look at magazines and videos and books, this desire for connection.
But I think it's important as a Catholic to help other people understand what these movies are trying to do. This is a great teachable moment. If somebody brings up this movie or the book, around a discussion at the table, dinner table, or if you're having coffee with friends, or if you're at the water cooler at work, you can then talk about this. Well, isn't this, what was she seeking? What was this character seeking? What was she really looking for? And it can bring you to a discussion, a very non-threatening discussion, I think, about our faith.
I think that's true. I think the other thing, especially in a movie like this, that delves into some of the Eastern religions, is that we have to be really clear that all religions are not the same. The whole idea in the meditation, and it does come up in the movie and the book, is just to empty your mind. And for us as Catholics, that's never our goal.
Right.
Our goal is to quiet our mind.
Quiet ourselves.
Is to try to enter into silence. But why silence? So we can insert ourselves into the very center of the Trinity, who is relationship. That's our goal in prayer. Our goal in prayer is not to empty ourselves and just have a blank mind, but to really encounter the incredible communion of love that's in the Trinity, which is what we all encounter. And so I think that's the other thing, is it can lead to a really fruitful discussion, as you say, around the water cooler, if we can really educate ourselves on the difference between what Eastern meditation is and Christian prayer, because there's a lot of confusion on that end as well.
Sure, and also to meditate on the scriptures, for example, such as a Lectio Divina experience, which I love to do because I'm a very visual person, and I've been to Israel, and I can walk through those different scenes with the Lord. Thanks. This is really a great discussion, and I really appreciate that. But just remember, always try to see everything, even when you're discerning these messages from the media, especially when you're discerning these messages from the media, to see everything through the lens of scriptures and the teaching of our Catholic Church. Thanks for joining us on this particular segment of 10 Minutes with Teresa Tomeo, or 10 Minutes with T, where we take a brief look at timely issues that affect our Catholic faith and our world. And we'll see you next time on 10 Minutes with T. Thanks for watching again. To find out more about the show, go to faithandlifetv.com. To book Teresa for a speaking event or to find out more about Teresa's ministry, visit teresatomeo.com. We'll see you next time right here on 10 Minutes with T. God bless.